Looking back, being an other in a situation where it's pretty homogeneous, being able to persevere through that and excel through that is a leadership quality that you take for the rest of your life. You can be in uncomfortable situations and still lead and influence, persuade people to see your way of thinking. Absolutely, it's something that I still carry with me today.
Welcome to Passion Fruit. I'm your host, Jeff Keel, and my goal with this podcast is to uncover how to live out a passion-led life. The Passion Fruit podcast is a part of Lumity Media Productions. Lumity is an educational media company creating and facilitating engaging content. Lumity offers a social education mobile app for both knowledge and inspiration. Build out your learning community with those who share your interests and elevate your content consumption experience through insightful recommendations. Join Lumity today to learn and grow both personally and as a collective. This is going to be a special episode. Not only is it the first live in-person recording, but I also have the distinct privilege of doing it with none other than Timothy Hines. Tim is a lighthearted, kind, genuine, and thoughtful person who I have the honor of calling one of my best friends and big brother. Tim is someone I go to for advice, probably more often than necessary, and he's always someone I can rely on for an impromptu therapy session. Someone who's been there for me during the highs and lows of life. He's someone I can always count on. I've cried with him, laughed with him, celebrated with him, and danced with him. Though he makes for a better therapist than an usher stand-in, his confidence in himself has always been admirable. An operations guru and an expert of Irish goodbyes, Tim excels at optimizing his time and being as efficient as possible. When there's work to be done, he gets it done and excels beyond expectation. And this has led to him climbing through the ranks in his career, all the while building lasting memories with those closest to him. Since I met him, Tim has been a shining light in my life, and I hope to share even just a fraction of that light with you in this episode. We'll talk through why having fun and spending time with loved ones is so important to him. We'll discuss his time as a Division I athlete and president of a fraternity. And we will explore his courage and what it took for him to embrace who he was and no longer be shamed by it. We dive in deep in this conversation, so I hope you're ready. And without further ado, live from New York, Passion Fruit with Tim Hines.
Love it.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? I wish I would have heard that little preamble before. Maybe would have crossed some things out. The usher, the usher part. And, I think I'm a good stand-in.
Yeah. I like catching people by surprise.
It's good. No, I appreciate the words. That was really nice.
Yeah,
it truly was.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty easy to put together. So
cool.
So yeah,
let's get into it.
I want to start with one of the first lessons you taught me.
Yeah.
And pose the question of why is it so important to always say yes to a cookout run?
Ooh. Why is it always so important to say yes to a cookout run? Honestly, like the cookout runs, anything after an F party, and this is F for people who don't know, that was the college hangout spot for most of us in the fraternity. Those are the times where you're actually engaging with people. You're having those conversations that like at an F court party where the music is blaring and you're just kind of dancing, you're drunk. You're not really talking to people as deeply. And, in those cookout runs, not only is the food good, you're probably pretty drunk at that point. But, yeah, it's a time where you get to know people at a deeper level. So always say yes to a cookout run.
Yeah.
It's like those conversations are the ones that I'll remember most about college.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just stems into the late night talks after and drinking. That's just like what it is. And
again, the food is fire too. So like you're killing two birds with one stone.
Good meal.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, you spoke to it a little bit, but friendships are something I think is extremely valuable to you.
For sure.
Just from a outsider's perspective, and I have a personal experience with that as well. But
I hope so.
What do your friends mean to you? What do friendships mean to you?
Yeah, I think life, as you go through life, I think the older you get and the more mature you get, you realize that it's the people that really make a life worth living. And I think particularly for me, growing up, and I know some of these things will probably come out throughout the episode, my friends were absolutely like an outlet. And I think I put a lot of effort into sustaining those relationships, building those relationships, because for me, I didn't always have that outlet in my family. You know, I didn't always feel very understood in a variety of different ways, but I've always had friends who saw me nothing more than the person that you described in your opening. And I think for me, it's just always been important for me to foster those relationships. And selfishly, it'd be kind of an outlet for the chaotic life that I live. And then just anchoring it back to the first point is I think community, building community with people, that's what life's all about. So for me, if I'm slipping a little bit at work, my personal life isn't going as well as I otherwise would have wanted it to, I can always rely on my friends to make things better, like truly, time and time again. And I want to be that person for someone else, but like that's who I expect my friends to be too, you know, because that's what matters. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you truly embody friendship, and when I think about you, I don't think of you as just like an individual entity. I think about you and all the people and the lives that you've impacted,
for sure,
and the smiles you bring, and the times that you have with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that is, you brought up work and the balance, and I think you do it as, a little voice crack, but I think you do it as good as anybody else I know in terms of that work-life balance.
Yeah.
And always saying yes to the cookout run, always saying yes, hey, do you want to grab some drinks tonight? Hey, I'm in town. You want to do something? But you always still get the work done. Mm-hmm. So how have you managed to always be down to have a good time, create some memories, but still excel and climb the ladder?
Yeah. Honestly, I think a lot of it is, first of all, growing up, I was always one who was pretty competitive. You know, just like in anything that I did. And this may be a little too deep, but I think I threw so much into excelling because that for me was a way in a world where, like, for my family particularly, where I didn't always feel as understood and supported for who I was. Excelling and doing really good at things and being really good at things was a way for me to get their stamp of approval. And, you know, I hope at this point I've evolved beyond that, and it's not just for that, but it is foundational to, like, who I am. And I think for me, it's, I want to excel. So just in terms of excelling in sports and in school, you just had to have a really good time management. And I think even at Davidson, for example, being in a fraternity, playing football, Davidson being an incredibly difficult school, that's just really set me up for work. Because when you think about a lot of the people that you're working with, like the rigor in which their past life and their experience have been is not going to be quite the same as some of the things that I've had to balance. And so my motto is always, in Braden, one of our good friends, he would attest to this, like, the work always gets done. The work always gets done. And for me, it's some of those experiences that we talked about where you just say yes to things. Like, you have to be open to that. So I think just good time management skills, which I've been equipped with just growing up and trying to do so many things, and then just always in the back of my head with the mantra of not fear of missing out, but more so just always saying yes to a new experience or a different experience or an experience with someone that you love. It's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, just opening yourself up to new memories,
exactly,
experiences, like
exactly. Yeah, like you never know.
Young, but who knows what can happen?
100%. Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
And some of the best stories, I feel like,
always
come out of those.
Always, and I try not to stress myself out too much at work. Like I said, it always gets done, and I think just having that high bar for excellence, when you set yourself up in that framework, you tend to get things done. It always happens. So, I mean, it's not something I think about too much.
How do you view work?
I think right now in my career, to be perfectly frank, I love the industry that I'm in. I like my job in terms of the balance that it gives me. I'm able to live in New York, one of the greatest cities, and I think it's a good chapter for where I'm at right now. am I completely fulfilled by the work that I do? Do I feel like it brings me like this profound sense of purpose? No, not necessarily, but I think it allows me, and we've talked about this before, but it allows me like the outlets to pursue the things that I do love, traveling and doing, I play sports around the city. And so I think it also, where I'm at in my career, I can see next steps being a little more fulfilling, managing people, helping them develop, moving up the ladder, so to speak, just in the current spot that I'm in. It's not something I go into the office every day and I'm just like, thrilled to be there necessarily, but it's good, and I'm fortunate, and I don't look at it like, I'm grateful for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and something I've started to appreciate a lot more is you just go through ebbs and flows in terms of your beliefs, but when I started to get into the entrepreneurial route, I was like, how can anybody ever normal job and entrepreneur is the only way to go, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, nah.
Yeah.
You can live a fantastic, fabulous life.
Yeah.
Working a regular job, 40 hours a week, and then using it to leverage living in the city and hanging out with friends and creating those other freedoms and those other places of enjoyment.
Yeah, it's funny because like you'll see on social media and stuff, I think there's a little bit of a stigma on the corporate life, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have all of these things going on, that is what success looks like, or at least like owning your own schedule and doing all of those things, like that is what you should strive to do. But to be perfectly frank, I'm a little more of a risk averse type of person. I think if there's a good idea, or if there's something, a business that I was really passionate about and I had an idea, then for sure, by all means. But I think, to exactly your point, corporate life actually works for me. I know what's expected. I can set my own individual goals the same way that any entrepreneur could. And where the flexibility might not be there, there's flexibility in other ways. Mm-hmm. And I'm still afforded the opportunities, a consistent paycheck, to be able to do the things that I love. And I think that's ultimately what it's all about. However that looks for your life, whatever. But for me, it works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the consistent paycheck, healthcare,
exactly,
like 401k.
Yeah, I don't have to think about those
I don't have
things.
any of that.
Right.
So there's balancing acts, and especially when you're early on in the entrepreneurial journey too, you have less freedoms.
100%.
That you had in the corporate
100%.
world. So
I mean, your whole life is wrapped up in trying to make your product or whatever you're doing viable. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my brother's another person that I think of. Like, he works a regular job, 8 to 5, or not really 8 to 5. Sorry, Mike. Yeah, your ass is not working 8 to 5.
Oh, I thought it might be longer. I thought it was gonna be like a 7 to 7 type of thing.
Nah.
All right, well, good for you, Mike.
Yeah, he's built, but like, he built a great life, and like, it's an amazing opportunity for him. He doesn't necessarily, he's not in love with what he does, but he enjoys what he does.
Yeah. I think it's a balancing act.
Exactly, it's such a balancing act, and it's, again, you're obviously somebody that also embodies that, and it's something I appreciate. So take it back to younger you.
Yeah.
We haven't, I don't know if we really ever delved too much into it, but grew up in Kings Mountain, just confirmed it was not Queens Mountain, it's
not
Kings
Queens
Mountain.
Oh.
Multi-sport athlete, superstar football player, in a small city of Charlotte, but like...
I mean, yeah.
What was it like growing up for you?
Honestly, growing up was I had a great childhood. I had a family, and granted, there's always things that aren't the best. But when I look back, having the wisdom that I have now, and the benefit of looking back and thinking about things, I had everything that I could have wanted. My family was together. They never missed a game. Everything that I did, I felt supported. In terms of activities and things, they pushed me to be a good person. I had amazing friends, and I grew up in a small town. So football was everything that you did on the weekend. Your friends were your life. I had a routine. Nothing was super complicated. I grew up in a small town, which was 75% white. There are some small rural town, religion, and things like that, to where if you didn't fit that mold, you would stand out a little bit. Fortunately, I fit that mold growing up, so I didn't have a particularly difficult time. I was good at school. I was fairly popular. I had a lot of friends, so I didn't experience a lot of the potential racism and things that are somewhat prevalent in smaller towns. I was kind of shielded by that, fortunately, and I look back and know that I was fortunate in that, because talking to other people And having the benefit of hindsight and looking back, other people did experience that. But I was kind of a social butterfly. If you were a football player, you were revered. You weren't black or white. You were a football player. That was the identity. And I think looking back, yeah, I don't complain too much about my childhood. And again, we'll get into some of the things that made it a little more difficult. But I didn't unpack that until later. In the time going through, I thought it was like the most idyllic childhood that you can envision for yourself.
Were you a pretty good student? I mean, it's not easy to get into Davidson, but
yeah, no, I mean, I was a good student. I was highly motivated. I wasn't the smartest person ever, but it's funny because like I still vividly remember like in first grade when you were doing the multiples, and there was 7 times 6, 5 times 5, 4 times 3, and it's like a full page of those, and everybody would rush to get them done, and then you flip over your paper as hard as possible to show everybody that you were the first. I say that to say ever since I can remember, I was always super competitive in that way, and like I said, I wasn't the smartest person, but I worked really, really hard. I was pulling all-nighters before all-nighters should have ever existed, just because that was how I felt good about myself. Sadly, there are parts of that I'm not proud of, but yeah, no, I excelled because I worked really hard, and being the best, particularly in the classroom, was something that was important to me, and having other students look at you as someone who's a model student, like that was important to me. So I was a good student. I worked hard. Yeah.
So speaking to Davidson, decide to stay local.
Yeah.
Go to the local Division I college.
For sure.
Play football.
What
was that decision process like? Did you have other options?
Yeah, no, that's actually interesting because it was for most people who are looking to play a sport, it was a little later than I think a lot of people recruitment process would have happened. I had a really good high school career.
You're a record holder, right?
Yeah. Someone has since broken that. Kobe Paysauer, he played for UNC. He was a receiver there. He broke it maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but it was a long-standing record. Whatever. I'm not bitter about it. Point is, football was absolutely not my identity. It was something I was good at, and I love sports. And one of my close friends in high school, he was looking to get recruited, and Davidson was obviously a good school. I had heard about it, of course, being so regional, and Steph Curry. Of course, you can't live in that area and not know about Davidson. And so he was getting recruited. He sent some film in to some of the coaches at Davidson, and they responded to him and were just like, well, yeah, we'd love to have you, but also, who are you throwing to? Who is your receiver? And he gave them my contact information. They reached out. Long story short, I visited and fell in love. And at that point, I thought football was a chapter that, like, I run its course. I was good, scrap small. And to be perfectly fair, I wasn't overly passionate about it. It was something that I was good at, and being good at something is where you can express your outlets. That worked for me, but I wasn't looking to play football. Previously, I was going to go to UNC, Duke, Clemson, all of these state schools that some of my other friends had gotten into and were going to, and Davidson was a last minute type of thing based on one of my other buddies deciding to play football and me seeing that I could keep that dream alive at a really good school and visiting and falling in love with the culture, the people. And I was like, yeah, damn, like why would I not do that if I had the opportunity to?
Yeah.
So that's ultimately how Davidson came to be.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
Oh
wow.
I guess we never talked about it.
Oh yeah. That's the story.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll say the name, but it might be a little controversial. Yeah.
No, but I didn't realize, I didn't know if you were going to be, or...
I wasn't really looking to be recruited.
Play football.
Yeah, and otherwise I would not have gone to Davidson, just purely out of my own ignorance. It was just not a school that was on my radar purely academically, and the football outlet is ultimately what pushed me over.
That's sweet that just how little things can change, because
always.
You're a Davidson man through and through.
Yeah.
Like
You
embodied it.
Exactly.
Like,
it's funny because like I couldn't imagine my life anywhere else.
Yeah, state school.
And state school, like I would have hated it probably. I mean, again, even state school people, you find your community, you make it smaller. Everybody does that, but no, Davidson was a perfect fit for me. Truly was.
So football, you kind of had I only got to play with you for 1 year, but you had a up and down career,
Totally.
battled some injuries.
A lot of injuries.
So just speak to some of your experience, some of your favorite memories,
Yeah.
some of maybe your not so favorite memories, and then just ultimately how it shaped you.
For sure.
In present
Well,
day.
I mean, I'll start by the not so good.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the time that we were there, and shout out to Davidson. I mean, the football program
Turn
right
it
now
around.
is amazing. They're doing well. You know, qualifying
What's
for the
head
playoffs.
coach's name? Scott Abel.
Scott Abel. Yeah. And
Turn
he's
that program around.
yeah. No, shout out to them. They're playing really well. I like to say we laid the foundation, but I can't even really say that with a straight face. But point is, it was a lot of loss. We weren't the best at the time, and that's hard because you're still playing a D1 sport and all the demands of a D1 sport, the rigor of Davidson, and doing that and losing. That's a really tough thing to walk away with. Flip side, the friendships, the people that you meet, the camaraderie that you build, playing a sport that you love and that you're doing it at a high level, and losing. There's no better sense of camaraderie when you think about it, like being in the trenches when things aren't really going your way. And so in terms of the life lessons, I mean, it's just endless. Like I'm never too high, I'm never too low. I think I've always been a little bit like that, but Davidson has really taught me that the highs are high, the lows can be low, but you have to have just a balanced perspective. I am so fortunate. I've always been so fortunate comparatively, and I was just born into that. You could be born into so many other situations. So I think just like it gave me perspective in a lot of ways, time management, always feeling like no matter what, I am going to get through it. Work, particularly like bad ruts in friendships, family things, like you're going to get through it. You're going to persevere. You always do. So in that way, Davidson football and playing football and meeting the people that I met was amazing. Can't remember. You asked more about just like.
No, I mean I just wanted to kind of get a general overview.
I will say,
experience.
yeah, the injuries, that was tough. I started out, honestly, probably the best season that I had was my freshman season, which is funny because like you get so optimistic. Yeah, we can probably relate on that. But you're so optimistic from what's to come. I think I'll get into some of the personal things that like I battled, but I had a different head coach 3 of the 4 years, different OC 3 of the 4 years. So the continuity wasn't really there. Getting in a routine, like really learning an offense and being confident of executing that year over year, that wasn't really there. So there were a lot of like structural things playing to my disadvantage. But I will also say, and just again, taking personal accountability is something like I'm always going to try to do. I think I really struggled with confidence. In the injuries, I started to doubt. I told you, even leading in, football for me was something that everyone always told me I was really good at. I never really felt that confident I was an athlete. I'm not saying I was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I never really had that self-confidence. So when the injuries started to happen, it was really easy for me to become really mental about it, and I was just never really able to get out of that rut. And I think coaches matter. I think we have phenomenal coaches, but I never had a coach, particularly that I related to, who was able to speak to me, to speak life into me, and to really make me understand, like, dude, you're a badass. Be that person. Trust yourself. I was always the worst enemy in the back of my head, and I think that really stunted my ability to like continue developing year over year. The injuries obviously didn't hurt, but I think the mindset was like bigger for me. And obviously the distractions of everything that was going on. I started to pour way more into those things, the things that I was good at, the things that I felt fulfilled in, the things that was bringing me gratification, because Davidson was a grind. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the arc. But amazing memories. I was happy when the chapter was over. But I have some of the fondest memories of my lifetime. The bus rides, some of the lunches, some of the dinners, the team dinners and things like that we had. And we just shoot the shit together. And the fondest memories. But I was ready for that chapter to be closed when it was closed. Mm-hmm. It was just time.
That's kind of how I think about it too. I mean, you get a lot of, I don't know if they're soft skills or hard skills, but you get a lot of those hard work, time management, just discipline.
Totally. that you take for granted at the time.
Absolutely.
And you look back and you're just like, damn, I would not have been the person that I am today without that experience.
And you carry that with you into business, into work, everywhere. You can tell when somebody was a college athlete.
Totally.
Versus when they're not. But to your point, I think the friendships are the biggest thing. You know, when I think about my time at both Davidson and Bentley, my closest friends to this day are the brothers that I was on the field with, in the gym with, up at 5 a.m. with, doing tug of war with,
exactly,
all that type of stuff.
And I think Davidson, the last thing I'll say about it is I think some football players get the rep of maybe being a little vapid, maybe airheads, in the sense that that's all that they care about is football. There's nothing else really going on. And I think that could not be further from the truth. Beyond just the physical exertion and like building yourself mentally and all the grind that happens with the sport, I've met some of the most insightful, thoughtful people with depth and like care about things going on in the world and want to be better citizens and want to contribute, want to add value. And I think, again, that's the unique thing about Davidson. But not to say other football programs don't have that, but you can never say a Davidson man isn't a smart man or isn't a thoughtful man who doesn't care about intellect and being better. That is absolutely foundational to who I would consider like a Davidson athlete to be.
Yeah, and I wish I had a bit more of that appreciation when I was there. I was very
football. Yeah. I mean, but you were young, you know.
Yeah.
You knew what you knew. You just needed time to grow up a little bit, mature.
But to the friendships, and that's obviously how we met. I was thinking about it in preparing for this, and I don't even remember when it was. I think it was one practice. We just started shit talking to each other.
And bus rides. I remember bus rides.
I remember the bus ride too. Yeah. But yeah, it was, and it was cool to just have that senior jokester, and we didn't really talk through camp.
Yeah.
We just didn't really cross
paths. It was definitely like well into the.
It was mid-season, and but yeah, and then that friendship just continued to grow through that into this next point of Davidson. You mentioned having other outlets. When I don't know how many games did you win in your 4 years?
7, 8.
Okay, in 4 years. I won one Division I game in my 2 years at Davidson.
Wow.
You
might want to edit that out.
No, I mean, and that's why, like you said, you have to find those other outlets, or else you're going to be miserable. And I was indeed miserable.
For sure.
I had some great friends there, like you, like the group, my class. And there was amazing people, but I just felt my priorities were a little bit different because I didn't tap as much into it.
Yeah. That's amazing perspective, though. That you can see that.
Yeah.
Because I've never thought about it the way that you're explaining it now. But I do remember the struggles that you had and not being completely, I mean, you obviously transferred, but not being really happy there. But that piece, having more than just football, being who you were. Yeah.
And it took me not playing at Bentley to realize, well, there is more to life than football.
Totally.
College is fun. And college is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, you were never probably going to go pro. So,
But I was an idiot. I took way too long to realize that part. But,
hey, man. Life is a journey. It's a journey. You got there.
I figured it out eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking to these outlets and just the friends and all that type of scene, are these some of the things that led you to becoming the president of Phi Delta?
Wow. So joining Phi Delta,
in the first
sure. I think.
Did you join as a freshman?
I joined as a freshman. Yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. And honestly, I could have not joined and still been just as accepted on the football team. But it was just what you did. Like, your whole life revolved around football. You built great relationships. All of them where they were at on the weekends when we weren't in season, and after games and such like that when we were in season, was doing the same things together. And I think as a young, impressionable kid, all you want to do is belong. And it was just like the guys were just so down to earth and so relatable and so much fun. Like, didn't take themselves too seriously. Like, we could lose the game, but you had to have more to your life, because otherwise, being at Davidson, I mean, we keep saying this, but the grind that Davidson is, the grind that football was, if you did not have that outlet, you're doomed to not have a great time. Exactly. So I knew from an early, as soon as I got to campus, and to be perfectly frank, before I got to Phi Delta was what sold me on coming to Davidson, with joining the football team. So that was aspirational, joining Phi Delta. Becoming the president was absolutely not ever in the cards.
Oh, wow.
Ever. I think people gave me that confidence, honestly. Like, In our year, it was me running against two of my very best friends. And it was weeks going into elections and things like, I mean, maybe it was a couple of months. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but it was more people coming up to me and being like, are you not, I had never held e-board positions or any sort of leadership positions within the fraternity, which is usually like a natural step into a presidency, at least, at Davidson. And so people were coming up and just being like, are you thinking about doing multiple people? And at that point, I had not even considered it, not even for a second. But having other people feeling confident in you to do it was when I was like, you know what? I actually think I would love this. And I think I could do it in a way to where people would feel seen, they'd feel heard. Like I'm leading it, but it's not me. It's not about me. It's everybody else around. I wanted to create that environment for the fraternity. But also it felt really, really great to have your peers having that, instilling that confidence. So yeah, joining Fight Out was an absolute certainty. Becoming president was like the furthest from that. Truly, like was the furthest from that.
And I guess getting back to work-life balance stuff,
Yeah.
how was the balance between Davidson academics,
Yeah.
football,
Yeah.
and being president of the fraternity?
Yeah, I mean, it was never a perfect balance. I'll say that. There was always one that you were kind of sacrificing. In football season, I would try my best to put as much into that. When we had some time away from football, I would try to be as proactive as possible to like plan things and be strategic in that way. But you also have a team in everything that you do that's helping you out. And I swear to you, obviously it's a lot to balance, but I looked at it as more of the way that I approach it is all of these different outlets. Like when one is not necessarily going the way, you could be so stressed out about Fido. Okay, but I get to go run and catch balls and hang out with my friends in football. That might not be going well, but I have this super incredible project that I'm looking forward to. I love this class that I'm in. I'm learning so much here. And so it was less about balancing it, and it was more about when they showed up and how I could direct my attention depending on what was going on in my life and what was like exactly the season, the stresses, all of those things. They weren't all stressful at the same time. There are ebbs and flows, such as life, So it was a more intuitive balance than I think many people would think about.
Did you? All the positions are voted upon individually, right? So you didn't run. You don't run with a vice president.
No. So the way that ours worked, at least, I can't speak for. Should probably know this, but typically, you run for president or vice president. If you run for president first, it just so happened. But maybe some people can just run for just purely vice president. For us, it was 3 of us running for president, and then I got that, and then they fought it out for VP between the 2 of those. So I guess you could have, in theory, been like, I don't really want to be president. I could just be VP. But it just so happened that all of us wanted to be president and were happy to be VP if it didn't work out.
Do you think you gained more leadership skills from running the fraternity or football?
Leadership skills. Purely leadership skills, absolutely fraternity.
That's what
I think I don't want to make light of running a business because it's obviously way more that goes into that. But running fraternity, particularly at that point in your life where you have never done anything in the realm of that, it was a lot. It was a lot to you're drinking out of a fire hose. And the reason I hamper on leadership in particular with that role is because everyone's looking to you. If anything goes wrong, the good times, the bad times, everyone's looking at you. You are involved in every decision, even when you're not, even when you may not have completely checked off. Your name is attached to that. And I think also Davidson, particularly Fight Out, was predominantly white. We had very little diversity, and I didn't feel that. I never felt that. I always felt accepted, and I think they would have accepted any black person that would have wanted to join Fight Out. But it just so happened, demographically, statistically, I was one of few, and so that was a little bit of added pressure. Not even gonna lie, I don't think at the time I may have realized that, but looking back, being an other in a situation where it's pretty homogeneous, being able to persevere through that and excel through that is a leadership quality that you take for the rest of your life. You can be in uncomfortable situations and still lead and influence, persuade people to see your way of thinking. Absolutely, it's something that I still carry with me today.
Did that ever, the small town of Kings Mountain, small school of Davidson, and both lacking diversity, did that ever leave you desiring for more, or did you always just kind of find comfort?
It's a good question. It's a
I
question
wasn't
that
really
I think
thinking about it
about.
until you just spoke.
No,
to
I mean
it.
it's a thing that I think about even now, because if you look at a lot of the photos that I have, or the friends that I have, a lot of them are predominantly white, and I think it has been because of one, shared experiences, proximity. Even growing up, I was always in advanced courses, and we just didn't have as many minorities where I grew up in advanced courses, and so you just got. It's kind of like the muscle memory of it all. I never felt like an other because that's all that I've ever really experienced. And I will say, between dating and connecting with some of my high school friends who are black and college friends who are black, I wish that was more prevalent in my life. But you get just so caught up in the world as you know it, and where I work and the things that I do. I play a lot of tennis. I play a lot of volleyball. I travel a lot. Davidson was a lot of white people. Again, like I said, the classes I took in high school, like a lot of white. It's just been that path, and I have never put a lot of effort into finding community in my blackness. I absolutely love who I am, and I connect with that whenever I am with people who are like me, but I have not done a really good job of really seeking that out and building on that and being really intentional about it.
What was a favorite either failure or challenge that you went through? And I'll leave it open to either football or just your time at Davidson, football or the fraternity, that taught you a lesson that you still carry today.
I think, if I'm thinking about it, and obviously we've talked a lot about football, we've talked a lot about the fraternity, so I guess that is top of mind. But in school too. Football was definitely, some of those moments were the lowest that I've ever been, particularly again when I came from contributing as a freshman, got marred by injuries in several different seasons, and at that time it was so tied to my identity and who I was, because I hadn't explored too much more about myself. And so when that is not working out, that's the lowest that I really ever felt. And again, not being that confident. And so I think going through that and getting through that and then looking back and being like, I can still look at it so fondly even in those lowest moments, that lesson has taught me a lot of what I talked about prior, just about like perspective and things like that. And I'm able to use it in my everyday life, just like that challenge, that feeling of not contributing, not adding value, but you're spending so much time doing something that like is really at the time, again, you couldn't see the benefit of it at all, and just going through that day after day after day, the beating that it gives to you psychologically, mentally, was really, really hard. And now I've experienced lows, of course, never a lower low, and hopefully I never do, but just being able to get through that and looking back on some of the ways that I had outlets and things like that, I now know I can go through pretty much anything in my life, because that was tough. But actually, I don't know. I feel like I'm trivializing some really, really hard situations. I was still fortunate to be able to play a D1 sport. It wasn't like a woe is me, but how I felt. It's all relative. How I felt at the time was really dejected, really, really low. And I've never felt that low, really, ever in my life.
I want to get back to a little bit of that, but speaking to the point of, in reflection, right, you don't, even though you remember the hard times, you still take them with such a positive spin, and you remember them in a positive lens. And it's beautiful to apply it to present day. Like, I'm thinking about even today. Like, today was a stressful ass day. Fucking Ian's podcast, uploading that shit took so long, and it failed literally 10 times before it finally went through.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
Walking here in the rain, but I know. So it's just like when it rains, it pours, literally. But when looking back in
Mm-hmm.
6 months, 3 months, a year, 3 years, whatever, I know I'll still remember some of the early struggles of learning the editing skills, learning just how to navigate this,
Yeah.
but it's all going to be such a beautiful reflection.
Totally. Some of the best advice, and not to cut you off, but some of the best advice I've ever been given is life is about the journey. Any success is about the journey. You have to acknowledge the good and the bad times, and that arc is what's beautiful about it. So like you have to embrace that. If everything was so instantly gratifying, then what would be the worth in building something, you know?
What's joy without pain, or what's
Exactly. Yeah.
accomplishment without struggle?
Yeah.
Moving a little bit past into present day, graduated from Davidson,
Yep.
top of class, president of the fraternity, 4-year letterman, worked for Bank of America, great job, living in Charlotte, back in your hometown, but also with a lot of your Davidson friends. Outside looking in, life is pretty good. Seemingly have it all figured out, but there's something inside of you that is still not right. And so, fast forwarding to June of 2020, you make the decision to finally come out as
Yeah.
gay at 27 years old. Why was that time?
Yeah. Well, fun fact is actually I let some of my very close friends from college, they knew about 2 or 3 years earlier. But to the world, I guess, whatever, my world on Instagram with my, 1,000 followers. I announced it in June 2020. And like you said, there was something that wasn't right. And I know that's not, you didn't mean it was like right or wrong, but for me it was something that was inauthentic and disingenuous. And I think I kept looking in the mirror. I kept thinking about the relationships that I had with my friends and who I wanted to be and who I thought of myself as. And the first word that I would ever want anyone to describe me as is authentic, genuine. He won't always be pleasant, but he's going to tell you the real. He's going to tell you how he feels. He's going to express himself in a very genuine way. And I realized that such a huge part of my life I was being disingenuous about. I may have had my reasons. I'm not saying I give myself grace, because I wasn't ready, but at the same time, it was that cognitive dissonance of thinking of yourself and wanting to be this person, and the behaviors that I was exhibiting and clearly not being forthright. That tug was becoming stronger and stronger for me. Not to mention, you start to learn so much about yourself. You start to gain other confidences, like as you grow older, and you realize that I deserve a life that I love. Everybody else is out there finding love. Everybody else is able to be their true, authentic self. Because of my sexuality, why do I not deserve that? And I was selling myself and the life that I wanted short because of the difficulty of taking the leap and whatever may have came from that, and thinking about that and worrying about how other people were going to perceive it. It was just noise in my life that eventually it became too loud to where I was just like, I can't go on like that. I will not feel true to who I am going on like that. And so I decided to come out publicly in that way to hold myself accountable to live that life, there's no going back. This is who you are, embrace it. And the sooner that you do that is when your life starts. And that's how I looked at it. It was the next chapter.
So you mentioned not having the confidence or just feeling right about it. You knew this for, you've known you're gay. So
Yeah. Since I can never remember being attracted to anyone. Certainly throughout childhood. I did always think it was something that you could just pray away, or find someone that you love, a woman that I was really into, and then you could just kind of mind over matter type of thing, that it could just go away and you could build a life. But I knew that even if I could do that, mentally get to a place where I could sustain a relationship with a woman, it would be a sacrifice. And I don't think you should sacrifice in love. You shouldn't sacrifice in those those areas, you shouldn't be making concessions. You shouldn't be making sacrifices. And it also wouldn't be fair to someone else. And ultimately, that's what did it for me. I felt like maybe I could get to a point to where I could coexist with my sexuality and living a straight life, but what kind of life would that be? And once I broke it down, it was not a life that I was willing to live for myself. Yeah.
So what was the cause of not feeling confident to just be yourself?
Yeah, I mean, predominantly family. And just growing up where I grew up, it was a small town, religious, was the South. Also being a football player, being an athlete in general, and all, it's something that I can probably think about now, but I don't think I've spent too much time thinking about it. Always being looked at and revered, always being accepted in every social setting. I've always done really well, and the fear of, oh shit, maybe being an outcast, that was something that, again, at now thinking about it, it's laughable because I couldn't care less. I think there's beauty in people sticking out. Like, that is what makes you who you are. But at the time, that was something that you didn't go against the grain. You didn't rock the boat. And I love my family, and they did the best that they could. They had 4 kids before they were 22. They were amazing in the way that they knew how to, but they could not support. They couldn't. I don't think they were there. And I thought a lot more about that and how they would perceive it and what it would do to my family than about just my own pure happiness. Because I could find happiness in other ways. I could just pursue other things. And so it was just a distraction for myself. But yeah, it's something that I've always known. For me, the fear was growing up in the environment that I was in and being an athlete and excelling at things and not wanting to rock that.
Who... Maybe not, you don't have to necessarily say the name, but who was the first person you told / when did you tell them?
So Matt Hunt.
Really?
Yeah. So we were in Naples. His family has a home there, and I was visiting. I think I was 24, so 3 years before the world knew, my family knew. And we were there, and it was just me and him, literally no one else. And we were having a deeper conversation, and I had been wanting to tell my friends for years because I felt my friends would not care at all. But it's always taking that first step. And he is someone who, for people who know Matt, who don't know him super in depth, he is one of the more supportive people that you can meet. He can get real deep, he can get real vulnerable, and he shares all the time. So I felt like it was a really safe space. I told him, and he was so thrilled for me, and so supportive, and so kind. And shortly after, I called Trey Hillscamp, and AJ Pignon, Colin Merrill, Rob Klein. Those are the people that and Indira, she's someone I dated throughout a lot of college, and I felt like she deserved to know too. So Matt was the first person I told, but shortly thereafter, there was about 5 or 6 other people that I told within the same kind of weekend type of thing.
Yeah, you just needed to take that.
Just needed to take the first step, and then it became like a lot easier because once you figure out you have someone else, I think that was also another fear. I wanted to be super confident in who I was, and I always thought like I wanted to date someone before I came out, because if for whatever reason I was exiled and people didn't accept it, I would have that person, or I would have someone to be able to be like, it's okay, like who cares? He was always someone I felt comfortable in, and obviously I didn't want to wait to a relationship to share such an important part of who I was. So yeah, he was the leap.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what does it even feel like to have to, and I don't know how much of this was part of your, I mean, it's who you are,
yeah.
So it's at your core, your being, but what does it feel like to have to lie about your true nature for that long?
It's obviously a shitty reality. Straight people don't, people have heard this time and time again, but straight people don't have to come out. Mm-hmm. They are who they are. So you're hiding a part of yourself, and no matter how much you deny it, and I tried to deny it for years and years and years, about it just being a small part of who I am, because there's so many other parts of who I am and who make up my identity. But you're lying to yourself. Your sexuality is a core part of who you are. It dictates so many other things in your life. It shouldn't be the end-all be-all, but to have to hide that is not a comforting thing. And it was difficult because I always felt like I was performing in a way. I was always like, oh, did that person realize? Did I just do something that would be a tell? So think about that. Growing up and always being mindful, always in the back of your head, wondering who sees you, or if they're able to see through whatever shield that you have up. It's certainly not great. But I think I also did it for some self-preservation reasons too. I loved what other people saw me as. That image, I didn't want. I keep saying this, but I didn't really want to rock that. So yeah, of course it was shitty, but I think I also internalized the gratification of how people saw me, and it was a self-preservation type thing to where, okay, well, clearly things are going well enough for in my life. Let's just keep it like that. And until I grew up and realized everybody is so preoccupied by building the life that they want to build for themselves, so to give everyone else that much power over your own life and what you should be creating for yourself makes absolutely no sense. Mm-hmm. Makes no sense. And I'm doing myself a disservice in that way.
And leading up to you telling Munt, were you at a point where you were like, I'm going to tell somebody soon? Was it like a premeditated thing that eventually was going to happen?
I don't think I went into that weekend knowing that it was going to happen. It was certainly not planned. It was very spontaneous. I felt comfortable. I felt safe in that space. I would say there was probably about a year or so, maybe even a little before that, where I was constantly contemplating it. Who should I tell? How should I tell? Should I tell? I mean, I probably should have started there. Should I tell? I was ruminating over it for a while and thinking about what this would mean for my life. Am I okay with that? I needed to get to a place where I was confident in the life that I could build with the prospect of no one in your current life accepting you for who you are. Of course, that's the most conservative way to look at it. Everyone wasn't going to be like, no, go fuck off. I don't like this. I won't be. But I needed to get to that place in my psyche to be able to cope with it. And I got there. I was just like, if I have to start over, it's so important to me that I'm willing to do so. But that was like a year and a half battle where I was thinking about it. Yeah. But that moment specifically coming out, there was
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
How long it took you to like?
Yeah, no, it took some time. Yeah. It took some time. I mean, it took my whole
life,
but like it took,
to actually,
from the actual moment of actually entertaining it, even from that to doing it took like some time too. Right. Yeah.
So you mentioned some of the past relationships. Mm-hmm. You were in multiple relationships with women. What was that like? Like what?
Difficult. And looking back, it was honestly tragic, more so in how I look back and how you're bringing someone else into your mess. For me, and I live by that to this day, it's like, if life is going to be hard for me, I can take it. Of course you want support, you want help, and you should always be able to ask for help, but I'll take it, I'll stomach it. But bringing someone else along in that, and them not being able to decide, not them having their agency stripped away, the lie that not only you're telling yourself, but you're telling someone else. That was really, really hard. That was really, really hard for me. And I made some bad decisions. I wasn't able to commit. Many of my past girlfriends would say, he didn't treat me very well, or he would cheat on me. He would break up with me without real reason. And all of those things, that is the exact, like people being collateral damage to your pain and your suffering. That wasn't fair. That wasn't fair at all. That's honestly another reason that I needed to do it, because otherwise I would just keep going on in relationships with women that ultimately I knew would not ever work. So it was really hard. It was hard, and luckily anyone that I've told that I had a long relationship, any woman that I've told, they've been so understanding because they knew all the other factors that were contributing to the way that I was existing within that relationship. And there's no excuse for being a bad person to someone, but one, the timing of my life that it was in, and two, just having this heavy burden and having to shoulder that. It was less about them, actually completely not about them, and everything about me. And I think being able to explain that and being able to own that it was super liberating. But also there's still some residual pain, because I never want to make someone feel less than or hurt in any way. I was in pain myself and dragging people along.
I mean, I've never really been the relationship type myself, so
Yeah.
I guess the question for you is, did you feel like you had to get into relationships to kind of mask?
Yeah, I think that was part of it. It was,
There's obviously love between you and the woman you've been in
of
relationships with,
course, and still fond friendships.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
But what made you
Yeah.
actually get into a relationship?
Yeah.
And sustain?
That's
one
a
with her?
really, really good question. It's definitely the appearance of it all. I would think most people would be like, okay, well, you play football, you're a good athlete, you're good looking, you have all of these things going on for your life.
Frat star.
You don't have a girlfriend. What's that about?
Yeah.
And you can only say like, oh, I want to be a player. So, but I also wasn't hooking up. So it was like there was no avenue to where I could hide beyond a relationship. And so I would say purely out of, again, to use the word, it's self-preservation. It was just the image preservation. It was more about that for sure.
So we're back from the break, and I want to close out this section, this part of the conversation, with just asking, how has your life changed since coming out?
Oof. Well, still not in a relationship, still single, but dating, No, but in all seriousness, it has given me far more clarity into what my life can look like and what I want my life to look like. Because, as you can imagine, I had all of these goals and what I thought based on me marrying a woman and me being with a woman and marriage aside, just me being with a woman. And I think it has been, so like that's one thing, but I think beyond that, it's just been so incredibly liberating in the sense that I've got me. I have this newfound confidence in the sense that I just trust myself. Like things are not always good. In therapy now for a lot of things that I'm unpacking and working through from childhood, hell, present day. But point is, I am well equipped to thrive, and I no longer carry this burden to just simply exist. Think about that. Going through your life from a day-to-day basis and carrying the weight of who you are, and in every single thing that you do, you are thinking about it. In one shape or fashion, you are thinking about it. Even if it's just from a perception standpoint, you're thinking about it. And that weight lifted from my life has been one of the more liberating things of all time. And I now, again, going back to the confidence thing, if you are not for my life, if you can't accept me for who I am, I have enough amazing people who do. And more so, I have me that do. And that is ultimately what's so important to me. Like truly. And I have to remind myself sometimes it's not always it's an everyday battle. And if you think about my life, in the time that I've been out, it's a small sliver. So it's a work in progress, but I embrace the journey. I genuinely do. I look forward to knowing who I'm going to be in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, and how much I will have evolved through just letting myself be who I am.
Yeah, that's beautiful and quite powerful, and I'm so incredibly happy for you that you've been able to take that step, and even though I didn't know prior, to see you now, to see you in New York, to just the steps that you've taken to build out the life for yourself has been amazing to witness. What do you want people to know about the difficulty of coming out?
Yeah, I think the counterintuitive thing that most people, when you're coming out, most people want you to do it on your terms, which of course you should, but they don't lean in. They're just like, okay, well, they're going to share when they're comfortable sharing. They're going to let you in when they're comfortable letting you in. But ask questions. Make someone feel like, I don't know. You have we talked about this actually when I came out, and I said the same thing to my family. It's like, you have known me as X for X amount of years. This is a big transition for you, for me, for everyone. If you go into that conversation and you have no questions, if you're not curious about how it has impacted me and things like that, then I intuitively question the validity of our relationship. Are we as close as I thought we were? Because you gotta have 1,000 questions. And so that's a long-winded way to say, lean in. Ask them the questions. And I think most people would be like, okay, maybe too far. I'm not there yet. I don't know yet. But I think if you're a true friend, they want to see that you care and that you're curious about some of the things that otherwise would be difficult to explain about. So yeah, I mean, I think I always implore people to ask questions and just to get to know that person, that part of that person. Yeah, everything is not going to be the same. You can lie to yourself all you want to. The sooner that you embrace the different part of who they are and make them feel seen and heard and loved and respected for just who they are in that, and be genuinely interested, I think it goes a long way. And I think, again, it's counterintuitive because most people are just like, give the time. And it's coming from a good place, but sometimes that is less constructive than otherwise just asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's been a big thing for me too, is like you said, it's a transition for those that are in your life too. That you were the first.
You have to give them grace as well.
You were the first person close to me. I mean, I'm obviously no gay people in my life, but you're one of my best friends and somebody that I truly consider a brother. And even sometimes when you're like telling me date stories with guys, it's still just an adjustment period. Of course. And, especially early on, when I've known you for X amount of years as dating girls and all this type of stuff, it has definitely been an adjustment period. But
for sure. But the sooner you lean in, the less of an adjustment it is.
For sure.
It just becomes like who you are.
For sure.
And one of the things that's difficult with my family, and I don't know if you plan to really dive into that, but they choose to not really talk about it as much. And for me, that the longer, it's like joining a firm.
It's not changing.
Exactly. It's like joining a firm on Zoom and you see them all the time in their boxes during COVID. And then you go into the office, you know them, but you don't really know them. And the sooner you break the ice, the more you can build upon like what it is and foster that relationship and grow from what the static state was. It's just like an evolution of that relationship. So you have to lean into it. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be feeling that way as an adjustment.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too because it's twofold, because it is a core part of who you are. Like,
totally.
Your sexuality is a major, pretty integral part of your identity, but at the same time, you haven't changed even a bit. Like, you're still the same Tim that I know, and so I guess just in that light, to other people that maybe have friends that have come out, the person that you've grown to love, the person that you've grown to know,
still there,
be friends,
still there. I would say in any way,
nothing has changed.
In any way, the only thing is it would enhance a lot of who they are because they're burdenless. They're not carrying around that weight, like that invisible weight that is so heavy. They're free to be who they are, and it will extenuate certain parts of who they are, and there probably will be some other things that introduced, but it's all, and I keep saying it, but it's all an evolution. It's all an enhancement. It's not, so I wish people would not hold that fear, because it's the fear of the unknown and not wanting to step on toes or offend, but it's more offensive to me if you don't engage.
So, what would you say to people that disagree with gayness? People that say being gay is a sin, not to call it Christianity or anything like that, but just that is a pretty big part in the ostracization, I guess, of and the effort of having to come out. So what would you say to those people that hold those beliefs?
Two things. I think you can hold those beliefs. I grew up in religion. I don't. That's not a core part of who I am currently. but I still respect it, and I understand, like, for a lot of people it is incredibly central to who they are. I think as long as you have your beliefs, but you're not shoving that down someone else's throat or judging others for not seeing the things the same way as you do or according to your own religion, and ultimately it comes down to humanity and recognizing. Some people think people come out for attention or whatever. It's now the new wave. I think our culture, particularly our generation and the generation beyond, is like, I personally, it's amazing, but some people may not think the same way. But it's just now the thing to do. And it's, if you really thought about that and you really challenge that, no one wants to make their lives harder than it has to be. So just the pure humanity of recognizing someone who has had to be other for their whole life, whether it agrees or disagrees with your religion, the humanity behind it of just like wanting that person to thrive and still have a good life for themselves. That's one thing I'd say. But I would also challenge them to think about it. You always have to make things personal for people. And God forbid the day that you've said all of these things to ostracize a community and it hits home for you in a real way. And you have to look that person that you claim to love in the face to say, I don't accept you. When it becomes real that way, you have a real tendency to be like, okay, well, wow, I want them to be happy. Because that's ultimately, for someone that you love, I would hope, that's the guiding principle that you live by. You want that person to be happy in whatever they do. As long as you're not hurting someone else, as long as this is my life. This is my life. I'm not asking you to change anything about who you are and what you believe. Just let me be and let me live my life. Let me find my happiness. And so, yeah, it's just really boiling down to just the humanity of it all and being empathetic towards the plight that, believe it or not, it's not the sexy thing to come out. Like, no one, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, but that's the last thing I would ever want to be a part of my life. But it is. So, I guess that's what I'd say.
And just from a little bit of a personal anecdote, when you came out, you mentioned that you came out to some of your close friends, and I was not one of them.
Yeah.
I found out publicly. It's hard, right? Because you don't want to make, I don't want to make that situation about me.
You,
like,
yeah.
It's all about you, but at the same time, I certainly felt some type of way. But it wasn't anything against you. It was a very heavy reflection on self, and
because we were close.
We were best friends.
Exactly.
You were my big brother in the fraternity.
Yeah.
We lived together in Charlotte.
For sure.
Truly one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And we used to fuck around and talk about best man at my wedding and shit like that. Like,
for sure.
Mikey's got it, but
no, it's all right. It's all right. I can be as long as I'm on the altar.
You're up there. You're up there.
That's fine.
But regardless, we were very close, and it hurt. But it wasn't a hurt towards you. It was a hurt towards myself, and it's, who was I portraying myself to be? What values was I representing, and how was I presenting myself, portraying myself to make you feel uncomfortable coming out to me? And we've talked about it, but it was just almost like you didn't know how I'd respond. You didn't know how I'd react. And that hurt a lot. Mm-hmm. And to this whole point of people that maybe disagree or don't understand fully, like you said, it's the human experience, and every single person has the right to be happy. Every single person has the right to build their life for themselves and pursue that happiness. And so I'd encourage anybody that is listening and just be conscious of how you portray yourself.
For sure.
Be conscious of the things you say, because you don't know who's listening, and you don't know the people that you're impacting by those words. And,
absolutely. And
it hurts a lot that I think about it, not regularly, but fairly often, of like, damn, that really upsets me that I couldn't have been there for you in your times of like debate of, damn, like, when do I actually come out? Like, I would have loved to be a support system when you're about to fucking post on Instagram and let everyone know, and I wasn't able. I closed that door for myself through the actions, through the words that I spoke, through the way, and I've grown so much since then.
For sure.
I was, 22,
For sure.
23.
But I think that's the way that you handled it is an incredibly mature way. Obviously being upset and doing some self-reflection and being like, what part of me did not make that person feel comfortable? And it's a journey for me, but I also wanted it to be a journey for my friends too, because it's not about, it is about me, but there are other ways that you can show support and exactly be cognizant of what you say and what you do and how you make other people feel, because you never know what people are going through and what they're dealing with. And so my point is at least you have the presence of mind to reflect on that, whereas a lot of people, they wouldn't go that extra step. It was just, oh, that's unfortunate, that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So, I mean, kudos to you again for doing the work, and again, it's a journey, but I think, like I said, we're all on journeys, so you're trying to be better, and that's commendable.
Yeah, and I still have plenty of questions, and I'm very happy to have you in my corner, be a close friend that I feel comfortable asking pretty much anything to, and even
Open
doing
book.
this, you know what I mean, being able to talk to you, and I think this can hopefully help people on both sides feel a little bit more comfortable or confident. But I'm very thankful for you to have you in my life to be able to have these conversations with. And I think just overall, again, passion fruit, right? The idea of this podcast is to talk to people about how they live out a passionate life, or how to live out a intentional life, and to build a life for themselves. It's very inspirational. And it's weird too, because you don't want to put too much of an emphasis or too much of a focus on coming out. It's just part of who you are. Yeah. It's not, you're not asking people to throw you a party every time you walk in the room or anything
Certainly
like
not.
that. But it was a big step for you, and again, moving to New York, it's been very inspiring to see you start to build a life for yourself and to build a life that you want to live. And
Well, I mean, I appreciate you saying that, because it certainly hasn't been easy. The one thing that I've continued to tell myself is, don't downplay your journey. Take pride in the steps that you've taken to be who you are and to continue trying to evolve, because I have always been the type of person, like, I don't want the attention. I don't want any accomplishments. If I feel good, that's enough. But it helps. It helps. And that acknowledgement is part of the growth. It's part of the growth, because like, you need to be able to track how you got from A to B. There's a lot of steps in between that, and I'm certainly not anywhere close to B. But those milestones are important. They're important, and even the troughs and the times that are not good. And I was being way too much of a passive participant in my own life. Now I celebrate the good. I acknowledge the bad. I move through, but I'm aware. I'm intentional. I try to be intentional. I try to be purposeful. Don't always do it, but like I try. That's one thing I try to remind myself all the time. Don't sell yourself short. Be proud of who you are. And a lot of people don't do the work. And no fault, they may have their life could be hard. I am fortunate in a lot of ways, but don't undersell the journey that you've been through. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I appreciate you acknowledging that, because...
Yeah, and just living your life for yourself. Run your race. That's...
Exactly.
Run your race, and however you see fit.
Yeah.
And build the life that you want to live for yourself.
For sure.
So yeah. So with that, want to move into rapid fire?
Yeah. How rapid is rapid fire?
It's not that rapid.
Okay.
I'm
not like the quickest on the brain.
Don't worry.
ADHD.
It's varied. It's varied a bit in the timeliness of the response. So
Okay.
It's number one book recommendation.
Ooh.
We got a couple here, a couple there.
Yeah. I would say it depends on who I would be recommending to it, but a general type of book is a book called Think Again. I think it's Adam Grant, and he's a psychologist. I studied psychology, and I think it's just an amazing book that really the intuitive thing for politicians, for anyone who's amassed a certain level of credibility and success, is to admit fault, to admit wrong, that you're wrong, is an admission of failure. And that book really challenges that the greatest success comes from when you challenge your own preconceived notions or what you thought was right. if you think about the scientific method and like some of the foundational principles in which our world and how we see it or how we experience it has come to be, is through trial and error. And so it's funny that we go through life always wanting to be right, and and you feel like a damage to your ego when you are wrong and when you have to admit wrong. But it's the most beautiful thing when you feel liberated beyond that, to be like, oh fuck. Well, that is my assumption based on the inputs that I had at the time, but I'm a growing, evolving person who is open to different experiences and have experienced more in my life. So my opinion should change, and the way that I think about things should change as you get smarter on things. So that's one book that I would certainly recommend, because it really gives you tools to challenge and just the license to know that that's okay, and like that should be the way that that's how you're an effective leader, by challenging everything that you've always thought and continually challenging it.
Yeah, Adam Grant's great.
Yeah,
love Adam Grant, and it's a good book. I actually didn't finish it, but
it's a really good book. Yeah, you should pick that back up. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier one of the best pieces of advice was the journey and appreciating the journey. Best piece of advice you've ever received, if not that.
Ooh, I mean, it may not be the best. I hate the best of things are always tough. The best right now, thinking about where I'm at, being present in this moment, and thinking about this conversation, is giving yourself grace and being kind to yourself. And I don't know that I've necessarily gotten that advice. I'm sure that I have. Clearly, it's something that I think about for my own life. So, and I'm sure I've heard it somewhere, but it's so important to me. We are all works in progress. When people who have excelled their whole life or just set a high standard for excellence and what they see as success can be the most critical people to themselves. But it's everything that we've said throughout this entire podcast. The beauty and the journey, all of those things, all of the statements that you can make. It's so true, though. It's so true. Be kind. Give yourself grace. It's a journey. Be patient with yourself. That's the best advice I could give at this point. I don't know that that's the best advice I've received.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out Tatiana, if you're listening. She put on my whiteboard one time, give yourself grace, because just so many conflicting priorities, and you just want to have, you just go.
Of course, and everything perfectionist, like
exactly, a perfectionist, the struggle of it.
Yeah,
and she gave me that reminder one time, and it's since been erased, but I'm gonna add it back on now.
Yeah, I mean, it's important,
but
it's important.
It's
a good anchoring exercise.
Absolutely. And that's not to say giving yourself grace is not to excuse
100%.
all of your mishaps or your shortcomings, but it's to be like, okay, everything's not gonna be perfect. As long as you're getting that 1% better.
Exactly.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yep.
I don't know how applicable this will be to you, so I'm curious, and that's why I want to ask it. One podcast, YouTube channel, or just content creator in general that you follow?
So content creator, I don't really do too much of that.
Right.
And honestly, most of the podcasts that I listen to are political based or news based, like market based.
Those count.
Okay. Well, yeah. So Inside Politics by MSNBC, The Daily.
You liberal.
Yeah, I mean, some people would say that. The Daily. It's just a good way to commute to work and
Daily's
feel like
New York Times, right?
Exactly. There's a lot in the rotation. I listen to a lot of true crimes type stuff too. But just in terms of aspirational, just feel like I'm on top of things. Those are probably the sources that I go to. But content creators, that's just
it's
a
weird phrasing. Yeah.
No. But like, yeah.
I still don't love the term content creator. Like, I'm not a big fan, but it just kind of rounds out the question. Okay, so with that, best piece of content you've consumed in the past 1 to 2 weeks.
Ooh.
And that could be book, whatever.
This is really, really random, but it was stuff you should know, things you should know. It's one of those two. That's the name of the podcast. But it was actually, and this is, COVID, the worst of COVID is behind us, like, knock on wood. But it was, it sounds super nerdy too, but it was a podcast that was breaking down So basically, the concept of the podcast is to make difficult concepts more digestible for anyone,
For the general, yeah.
and just explaining the everyday things that go on in your life that like we kind of take for, like how elevators work, scaffolding, like what's going on there, the things that we just like see and accept, but we don't really challenge. And this particular episode was about the mRNA technology, but the science behind it and how it created the COVID vaccine. And there's obviously a lot of conspiracy theorists around, oh, it was a shot, but there's so much that was happening behind the scenes, and it was incredibly fascinating to learn about how it works. It was challenging in terms of preconceived notions that I had already had in my head.
And all the shit that's been
Exactly. Yeah. And it was fascinating to hear the breakdown of it.
Yeah.
In a digestible way.
The episode I just released today with Ian Schlander, biotech. So it is technology.
Yeah. And so it is, right? Okay, I thought I was saying that
pairing
correctly.
of the biotech or biology and technology. Yeah. Very cool. He actually mentions COVID in the episode too, so hopefully I don't start getting censored.
I was going to say, don't add that hashtag to the however you're promoting it.
All right, last one of this section. Who's the smartest person you know?
Smartest person I know. Just like pure intellect, because I think about smarts in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's why it's been a difficult question.
Yeah.
But I like it still because you can answer however you see fit. Intelligence is certainly subjective, so it's cool to be able to see different people's answers.
Obviously, I know a lot of really smart people, but then if I were to say a name, there's someone else that I would think about, but it is rapid fire. Oh, fuck. So the first person that came to my mind was Will Barefoot.
Will Barefoot.
Yeah, and most people. He's really smart. He's really book smart. Obviously,
he's witty too, though.
And that's a huge mark for how I consider smarts. The wit, being quick. And yeah, he's incredibly wicked smart. Yeah, he's probably the person I'd say. But I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah.
I know a lot of really, really brilliant people.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of a selfish question for me for when people answer it more personally. But
yeah,
I'll take it. All right, so I'm going to do 2 closing questions. I'm going to pivot. I haven't asked this one to anybody yet.
Okay.
The last one is going to be my staple, but first one will be, when you're at the end of your life, what do you want people to remember you for or as?
He was there. He was present. He was willing to make sacrifices to check in on the people and be there for the people that meant a lot to him. And I honestly hope at this point I have not met like my person. I have goals of doing that. But yeah, just being a constant source of support for the people that you love. And not to make it a 2-part thing, but that I died happy. No matter when that is. I'm someone who truly believes tomorrow could be my last day. And I always want, no matter what's going on in my life, to try to see the positive in it all. What fun would life be if it was, well, I won't say that. If it was all happy, it would be still fun. But point is, it's like, that's just not how life is set up. And just someone who always found the silver lining. So, showed up and was a silver lining guy. That's, on my deathbed, that would mean a lot.
You're doing a pretty good job so far.
Hey, hopefully I have a lot of life to live, so have to keep holding true to that. It's a lot more.
All right, so final question.
Yeah.
It's been one of my favorites. What do you love most about life?
Yeah. How different your experiences can be, depending on where you are, who your circle is, and it speaks to the fluidity of life if you so choose to embrace that. It's like your life can be one thing. A lot of people anchor on being sustainable, like the continuity of it all, routines and things like that. But life can be so beautiful, and there are people thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from me who have no idea what's going on in my life in New York, and they're living a completely different life with their own set of rules and people and things that they love and enjoy doing. And I think that is such a beautiful thing about life, and it gives me that flexibility to always feel empowered to change. If there's something that is not working in my life, I promise you there is a way to get through that, and there's an avenue to change where you can still, it's practical, because everyone, I mean, there are now 8 billion plus people on this planet. No one life is the same. That is fascinating to me, and that's the one thing, like, that's the human experience. Yeah
It's kind of a paradox too. It's the commonness of the human experience,
totally,
but also the uniqueness of it.
Yeah. I choose to lean into the uniqueness a little more.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, then it's just like, well.
I mean, no one has lived your life. Like,
totally.
Every single person has.
Yeah.
But there's such commonalities and
of course we all have
intertwined.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's like you can still have continuity with changing certain things about who you are, who you want to be, and you're never stuck. You know, like, I don't know. I think that's beautiful.
I agree.
Cool.
I agree. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed it. I appreciate you doing this. I think it's really cool, and I think it just speaks to the evolution that at least I've been able to witness in your journey and your growth, and I'm just happy to be along the journey and that we've remained close, and the kind things that you said at the beginning. You're the only friend that I have that writes letters. And I think it's such an amazing thing that you do, and not beyond journaling, like you write letters to leave for other people. And I don't know, your growth in the last, I guess, 8+ years that we've known each other has been truly remarkable, and give yourself credit for that too. I've enjoyed it. Like I told you before, this has been a really good exercise for me on my journey, in self-discovery and being more authentic and true to who I am. So I appreciate the outlet.
Yeah, and you've truly been, I mean, maybe from my siblings, but I have friends from Tampa too that have been, but as far as the depth of our relationship, you've really been through it all.
Yeah.
And I am so incredibly thankful to have had you.
Yeah, man.
Every step of the way.
Well, you better be, because I don't think I'm going anywhere.
Every step of the way, man. It's been phenomenal to know you, to continue to get to know you, and to share experiences together.
For sure.
I know, as I said in my intro, I know I can count on you no matter what. If I call you at 2 a.m. or 11 a.m., it doesn't fucking matter. You're gonna be there, and you don't get too many of those in life. And I'm very, very thankful for you and for the relationship that we have, and for all the wisdom, for all the lessons, for even beyond the things you've said, just the platform to be able to talk to you and vent to you and also pick your brain. Yeah, man, it's an incredible opportunity to know you, and full transparency, you weren't even necessarily somebody I was thinking about doing this, but then as I reflected and just thought about our relationship,
full transparency.
And you, well, I didn't know how willing you'd be able to, or you were to go, and as you spoke on a little bit, this is continuing to be new for you, is to continuing to open up and get vulnerable. And so I didn't know how open necessarily you would be, but I was thinking about it, I was like, damn, like that would be such an incredible conversation to capture and to have. And so I thank you for allowing us to engage in this. And
I want to say just one last thing. Obviously, I hope this podcast blows up. I want the best for you always, always. But I think the spirit of why you're doing it and what you're doing, and to have this vault of conversations with people that you care about and people that you respect, and like that in and of itself is a success. And I want you to not get so caught up in the numbers and the success of it all. Like that's gonna come no matter what. But like it's a beautiful thing to have. Like it's incredible. So good, kudos to you, man, because everybody doesn't have that courage, that faith for themselves. Like, to like take a leap of faith. It's a tough thing being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
So,
and it was I've been thinking about this podcast for years, and it took that leap of faith to get vulnerable, to put myself out there. And like you have these visions of where you want it to go, but man, am I fucking thankful.
You can't get so caught up
for
in that.
every single conversation I've had so far. You're number 5, and I am so thankful to not only have these conversations, but to be as close with the people that I've had these conversations with, and to have these amazing people in my life that I now have the platform and opportunity to share their story, and to give them an hour and a half to just talk about themselves, and to again share how they've built the life that they have for themselves. And again, I have these goals and things that I want to do, and I trust that those will come to fruition, but I am so present and so thankful for this journey and for the people that I get to talk to right now. And
I think that's what it's all about.
It has been such a rewarding experience.
Oh, good.
Such a rewarding experience, and this conversation.
Only going to go up from there,
Absolutely. Yeah. So that does it for this episode of Passion Fruit, episode number 5. With the boy, Tim Hines. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. Follow us on IG. I'm JKeel3000, at Lumity app.
I'm not even going to say mine.
I'll throw it in the show notes.
Like, I don't,
Tim Hines 15 or something like that.
I post no content.
Zero content from this guy.
Whatever.
But if you're in New York City, one of the best people I know, and extremely lucky to know him. Thank you for listening. Hope you got something out of it. See you next week. Cheers.